This episode of the Corcoran Entertainment Show is brought to you by Black Box Prompter. Are you a musician tired of being tethered to your tablet or music stand? Do you long to connect with your audience on a deeper level, but find yourself constantly glancing down at your lyrics and chords? Then I highly recommend Black Box Prompter, the smart and stealthy lyrics and chords teleprompter designed to liberate musicians from the stage clutter. This innovative device is perfect for bands, hobbyists jamming out in the garage, touring pros rocking arenas, and even houses of worship looking to elevate their services. It discreetly displays your lyrics and chords, allowing you to maintain eye contact with your audience, adding an extra layer of authenticity and connection to your performance. Don't let distractions hold you back. Unleash your full potential and create a more powerful connection with your audience with Black Box Prompter. Click the link in our episode description and use the promo code Corcoran at checkout for 10% off your purchase. Black Box Prompter, the smart teleprompter built for musicians by musicians. The Corcoran Entertainment Show is brought to you by Podmatch, the ultimate platform designed to connect podcast hosts with prospective guests effortlessly. Are you a podcaster looking to elevate your show to new heights? Or perhaps you're a guest hoping to share your story with a broader audience. Whatever your podcasting goals are, we have the perfect solution for you. Podmatch simplifies the entire process of discovering guests for your show or finding podcasts to feature your expertise. Now imagine a platform where you can easily match with like-minded creators tailored specifically to your niche. With Podmatch, you can effortlessly network with influencers and thought leaders, all while staying true to your podcast vision. There are a multitude of ways that Podmatch can help you grow your brand. You can be part of a thriving community of podcasters and potential guests. Engage, collaborate, and grow together. If you're ready to experience these fantastic benefits for yourself, we invite you to join Podmatch today. Head over to www.joinpodmatch.com/Corcoran Entertainment and sign up right now for only $6 a month. That's right, you heard me right, $6 a month. Join the Podmatch family today and watch your podcast soar to new altitudes. Thank you for tuning into the Corcoran Entertainment Show, and happy podcasting. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Frankie Corcoran. This is for the last episode of February. It's February 27th. And it's also a Thursday too, which we don't normally do podcasts on Thursdays. You guys know that, but I have a very special guest today. So excited to have him on here today. You guys probably know him best as Howard Hamlin from Better Call Saul. And he's been in a multitude of other things, Last Exorcism, Grey's Anatomy, and among many others. And I was thrilled and just honored to be able to chat with him today. So yeah, I guess there's not really much to ramble about. Let's just get right to the interview. If you guys like the podcast, be sure to leave us a nice review, nice 5-star rating, always helps. And yeah, so without further ado, guys, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show today. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I am your host, Frankie Corcoran, and today I am joined by a very, very special guest. For those of you guys who listen to my podcast, I cover Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, all that stuff all the time. And I always say that Howard Hamlin had to have been the most tragic character in all of TV. And I know there's arguments of why it's, spoiler alert for Walking Dead, why it was Glenn from The Walking Dead, or why it was, somebody else, George Cooper from Young Sheldon. But for me, it was always Howard Hamlin, just seeing the arc that he went on and the story and stuff like that. And I'm thrilled that he's here today with us, alive and well. So honored to have him here, coming to us from the UK you're in?
Yes, I'm over across the pond, as they say, for a little while.
Wow, that's awesome. So very thrilled to have him on here today. Patrick Fabian. Patrick, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the intro.
Yes, well, thank you for agreeing to come on. I mean, as I said in the intro, I mean, we'll get into Better Call Saul and all that stuff like that, but just seeing you alive and well after such a tragic end to Howard Hamlin's death. First off, what has the fan reaction been since Better Call Saul and your character's death? Where, as I mentioned, it was so tragic and it was so shocking. What has the fan reaction been? Have people seen you and go, "Oh my God, you're okay," and all the different types of reactions? So, how would you describe the reception from the audience?
Well, yeah, it's initially, of course, it was very wild. It was a whole bunch of stuff coming at me. It's the show's ended now for what, almost 2 years, maybe even three, coming up on, and but still it lingers. Especially, like I said, I'm over in London for a little while, and you ride the bus and you ride the train and you're just walking around town, and of course, people, it's out of context to see me walking around with my Taylor Swift hoodie, going into the market, and they say exactly that. They go, "Oh my God, you're alive," or they just stop and they feel compelled to like walk down the train car to go like, "You're." I just have to let you know that was like the most shocking moment on TV. Like people really want to share that moment, and I let them, and I love to, because I agree. It was shocking to me as well. I mean, I obviously knew it was going to happen. I got the script and I actually shot it. But then I watched it like I did every episode of Better Call Saul with the fans on Monday night when it came out. And by the time it aired, honestly, it had receded in my memory. I mean, I still knew, but when it happened, I also was like shouting at the TV, "What?" I was crazed.
And that's also just a testament to the writing of Vince
Yeah.
Gilligan and Peter Gould and Tom Schnauz. I think he wrote that episode as well too, as well as directed it. So that's just also not just a testament to you guys as well, but the writing. That's always a huge thing with TV and really anything, is just if you have good writers and you have good actors, magic happens. Like the work just does itself. And so you are also a stage actor. You also dabbled a bit in the screen and stage. And this is something I always love talking about with people who do both. Um, what elements of stage acting do you think are most important for on-screen acting? I mean, one thing that I talk about is when you're doing a show or a movie, for instance, you only learn chunks of it. You learn certain scenes and all that of what's being shot. But when you're doing it for the stage, you almost have to learn the whole movie and perform it in 1 hour. So, are there anything or things that you learned doing theater that carry over into stage? And if so, what are they?
Well, I think first of all, memorization is a big thing in my mind. If you don't know your words and you don't know what you're saying, I'm not one of those people who all of a sudden hits stage or hits the screen and has an inspired improv. Rarely am I asked to do it, and really I don't, because as to your point with Saul, the writing is so good. You're not there to stray from it. You're there to honor it. You're there to illuminate it, and especially with a play. Play is not a place where all of a sudden we're changing things up. Too many people are relying what's going on night after night. Um, but the ideas are still the same. Of like, even if I am doing it in chunks for an episode of TV or even a movie, you still look at the totality of the thing before you show up on day one. You don't show up going like, I'm doing the fourth act right now, and I'll get to the other stuff later. Your homework, at least the way I was trained, was that you make all those decisions beforehand. You at least come with an idea. You come prepared, and you come with an idea of what's going on. And then once you get there, you're willing to go ahead and discard your ideas, working with the director, working with other actors, seeing what you're getting and not. And that's all the rehearsal stuff. But when it comes for showtime, for me, it's knowing the words and knowing them well enough that I don't have to be worried about, do I know the words? Because if I'm there, I'm so far away from embodying what's supposed to be going on and being able to receive what other actors are giving me. You know what I mean?
No,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, that's really the crux. You just don't want to be, and by the way, I've gone up on my lines both on screen and on stage. So, that feeling, that awful feeling of, oh no, I don't know what I'm saying next is the worst.
Well, it depends on what kind of play you're doing, I guess. We always say, like, we've done lots of farces here in my community for community theater. And we always say, when you're doing a farce, if you forget your line, nobody's going to know because it's a farce. You can almost get away with
Yeah.
anything in that, especially a play like the play that goes wrong. If something actually
Oh,
goes wrong, you don't got to worry
love
about
the
it.
play that goes wrong. I saw it in New York. I also saw it here in London twice. It's also my kids, not surprisingly, they're 12 and 14. They love that play.
So funny. I watched it. The first time I went to New York was July 2017, and that was one of the plays that we saw.
Oh,
And just,
great.
oh my God, it was just like we were just in stitches the
Yep.
entire time. And it's one of those ones where I always say, people ask, how do you, well, not everybody asks me this, but if someone were to ask me, how would you like to die? I would say, I like to die doing the play that goes wrong. Because they always say, they're like, if you're doing it, that's a lot to be careful of. You know, if the set's falling down, stuff like that. I'm like, there's no better way to go. That would be the
Oh my God, way to go! So you got an actor's gene in you. You want to die on stage. Good for you.
there's no better way to do it. And I probably shouldn't say that out loud because people will hear that and go, oh my God, you shouldn't be saying that. But that's just how much I love that play. And the theater nerd in me is always really, intrigued to hear of other people's processes and stuff like that. You had just mentioned about forgetting a line on stage. Are you able to
Yeah.
elaborate on that and what that feeling is really like and how you recovered from that?
Oh, well, going up on stage. I mean, at least if you go up in a take on set, you just go back to one.
Yeah.
You know, um, I'll tell a quick story about that. I was doing a show called the Education of Max Bickford, starring Richard Dreyfuss. This is back in 2001. Oh my God, it's a 24-year-old story. Sorry, but the reason I'm telling it is because I was working with Richard Dreyfuss, and
It's a big deal.
uh, and I'm supposed to play. He's a professor, and I'm supposed to be his buddy, and blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. We have a scene. We're walking and talking, and there's a confrontation. And not only am I drying up on the words, I keep missing my cue. It's a one take. Running down the hall, the camera swoops around. I miss my cue. Can't do it again. Camera swoops around. I miss my cue. I finally get my cue, but it's not good. So we go back to when we do it again. I get my cue, and it's still not good. I'm so in my head. And Richard Dreyfuss goes, hey, the director was just about to walk in. He goes, hey, Patrick. And Richard goes, hey, can we have five? Can we have 5 minutes? I got a phone call. And the director backs off. He goes, oh, okay, great. So we stop, and I start walking, and Richard goes, hey, walk with me. And he takes me offset around back of the flats. And he just goes, oh, you're in it. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? He goes, oh, no, it's all over you. It's okay. You're not getting fired. You're a good boy, and you'll probably get laid again. Let's do the scene. And so we go ahead, and we run the scene. And he goes, can I give you a suggestion? Yeah, Mr. Dreyfuss, you can give me a suggestion. He goes, try this. Blah, 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 blah. Just think about that when you do it next time. Okay. And he shouts, he goes, all right, ready. And we go back, and he just sort of took me out of myself, brought my temperature down. We go back to one. We go down the hallway. The camera swoops around. I know my line, and it's perfect. And I can see it in his eyes. And they go, cut. And you hear the director say, moving on. And I was like, thank you. He goes, no problem. And I thought, that's the kind of actor I want to be, the kind that can help rescue somebody else. So that's one, drying up on set. Drying up on stage, boy, the last play I think I did that on was a thing called Dinner with Friends, which is David Margolis, I think, play. Anyways, lots of quick dialogue. Bam, 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 bam. Very, very witty, very much like an old coward sort of thing. But it's the sort of thing that you can't get lost. It's a tennis match. You can't skip ahead, and you can't fall behind. And I fell behind. And so I restarted where I thought we were. And then clearly we weren't. And then we paused. It was me and Kevin Weissman on stage. And we're sitting in like a fake bar. And I see him with his eyes, and I see him deliberately reset it. And he goes back to a certain cue. I hear that reset and immediately start 5 lines ahead of that. So we get right back in the same thing. And then I try and reset it. And finally, he just goes, stop. and he starts it from the top of the scene. And at that point, the audience, is confused. At first, they think something's going on, and then he hears stop. And we started at the top of the scene, and the audience just sort of giggles and applauds a little bit. Boom, then we went going. So,
wow, that's good. And the audience are very forgiving in that way. And I mean, like it is one of those things where they're not gonna know unless you let on. Like I always say, I mean, if you straight up say, "Oh, right, that's my line. I forgot." It's like, no, that's every actor's, maybe every actor, every director, everyone's worst nightmare is if someone says, "Oh, whoops, I forgot my line" on stage. Like that's just like that should be illegal on stage, you know. But it's as you said, it's when you have people who like if you forget a line and you have someone on stage who like let's say your line is, "Can I have some orange juice?" and you forget the line, you can have your co-star say, "Would you like some orange juice?" Like just something to keep it going, and then it'll pop in their head, "Oh crap, that was my line." So it's really a team effort, and I think it's one thing where it's live, like there's nothing really that you can do about it. But if you're just staring at the person who forgot their line, that's just more pressure on them. Like
oh, absolutely.
then they're just scrambling, you know.
You were talking about farces before, with the play that goes wrong. Do you know the play Noises Off by any chance?
Noise is off. Who wrote that one? I feel like I heard of
Michael
it.
Frayan wrote that. It's a great stage farce. They also made a movie of it. John Ritter is in that.
Oh,
It's not,
he wrote did he write the play Audience, the one act play Audience? Am I
oh, he
thinking of
might
the right
have.
one?
You know what? I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with all of
Yeah.
his work.
He sounds very familiar though. Yeah.
But it's about a play within a play, and it's all about mistakes, wrong entrances, and everything else. So that's also a play that I've done before, where if you screw up, it doesn't matter because the play is already sort of a shambles and a wreck. All you have to do is say literally, "You know what? I'm going to start at the top of the scene. Let's go back." That sort of thing.
And those are the best kinds of plays. If you have people who are nervous, it's like, hey, you know what? If you mess up, this is the perfect play for you because if you mess up, nobody's gonna know. And I think that's probably the best type of play to do. But so now that you're doing so much, I mean, like us talking about you starting off in stage and stuff like that. Now that you've kind of, I mean, of course, you book Better Call Saul. You've done stuff, or like you've the Last Exorcism, like you've done so much other stuff. Is theater always in the back of your mind something that you want to get back into? Is it one that kind of took a back seat now that the TV and the movie roles have kind of started coming in for you? Like where does theater
Yeah, of
lie for
course
you?
it does. Theater notoriously doesn't pay very well. It takes up a lot of your time and makes you unavailable for other work. However, I love theater, but when you hit a certain point of at least for me, when I hit a certain point, kids and everything else, you need to take jobs that go ahead and pay the rent, frankly.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm in London right now, and I would love to get on the stage here if possible. And I would very much like to get back on the stage. So that is something that hopefully, because of Better Call Saul and having been around for a while, I might find myself more able to do.
Definitely, and I love what you say of you need something that's going to pay the rent and pay the bills, and you have kids too. So now that you're kind of going all over the world and stuff, how does that bleed into the family life? Are they always very supportive and like you might want to stay, but then they're like, no, 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 Dad, go on and go. Like how do you manage the work and family lifestyles?
Well, the great thing about Better Call Saul, which was like a big, heavy job that took up a lot of time, we started that in 2015. It was like 7 years long. Um, uh, the show was called Better Call Saul. It was not called Better Call Howard, and so therefore, it was, as it's not about me. And because the show is bifurcated between the bad guys doing desert crime stuff and the lawyers. When I would work for sort of a concentrated kind of days. So for 6 seasons, um, my schedule out there, I don't think I ever spent more than 2.5, 3 weeks in a row in Albuquerque. So, and Albuquerque is close to LA, so I was able to come home. So for my kids, I would just be gone for a couple of days, maybe a week, and then I'd be back in time to make turkey sandwiches for lunch. You know what I mean? Take them to school. So it really was a blessing of a job to have at that time. My kids are 12 and 14 now, and they're actually over here in London. The whole family we moved over. And
Oh,
so
nice.
we're over here. The kids are in school over here. So they get to see me a lot more. But I think any artist's life, any actor's life, any entertainer's life, that just goes with the territory. You're not going to be home for holidays. You're going to be flying. You're going to be doing something. Um, Everything's last minute. And if you really want to get a job, book a non-refundable plane ticket somewhere. And you'll definitely book a job that pays you just a little less than that plane ticket was worth.
Exactly. Do you ever have the times where maybe you have those times where you're like, did I make the wrong decision getting into this? Because this is a lot more. Because as you say, when you're an artist, you're moving all the time. You're flying to different places. You're driving lots of places. Time away from family. This and that. What was there ever a point where you said maybe this lifestyle is not for me because it's just a lot more than I thought it was going to be, or did you just go into it knowing from the get go what it was going to be like?
Well, I don't think anybody knows what it's like when you get into it, and everybody's story is different. Everybody's experience is different. There's people who've gone before you in certain ways, but the reality is it's going to be new to you, and their way is old and out of date, anyways. And it's when I give advice to younger actors now, I realize, well, I'm at a different. When I came in, there were certain things you could do to sort of hopefully create opportunities, and now there's so many more tools, and some of the ways that I used to are closed. And what I like is the adventure, the unknowing, and the anticipation of I don't know what's around the corner. What I hate is the adventure, the unknowing, and the anticipation of I don't know what's around the corner. You know what I mean? It's because I think every actor suffers from the notion of like, okay, the best moment is when you get a job and you know you have the job and you show up on set or you show up on stage and you're like, oh, this is the job that first day. But at that point, you also realize if it's finite, it will end. And you have that lurking suspicion that you're a fraud and imposter syndrome and you'll never work again. I think people suffer from that on all levels. I can certainly speak to that on myself. And so the days that I have free time, some days are really great. It's really great to take advantage of not having a job that is consistently working you 8 or 9 hours a day. But sometimes having time on your own can be really the devil's time, and you can start pretending, one, that you can spend money like you have a job, or two, that you're never going to work again. So it's a constant battle. And the one thing I do think that is consistent from when I started as an actor and anybody starting now is it's a mental game. You've got to be able to take rejection and not take it personally. And you also have to be able to sustain yourself in between those times when you are getting rejected and or getting a job. That's the name of the game. Trying to keep your sanity without, going overboard. It's funny because you can't take the praise too seriously. Otherwise, you're going to have to take the criticism too seriously. And neither one is a reality. You know, my auditioning is my auditioning. I'm either right for the role or wrong for the role. Some days I'm better and I don't get the job. Some days I'm terrible and I do get the job. So, it's weird. It's
It all
weird.
kind of
But
works out in its own
it,
way,
it
you
kind of
know?
works out. But, also there's long stretches where people don't work. And there's long stretches where you see your friends become rich and famous and stuff like that. And, Saul came for me after the age of 50. So that's really the first big series regular job I've had after being in the business for 25 years. Lots of almosts, lots of, oh, he's a good guy. Lots of, he's guested on this, and this. Lots of pilots that never went. This cut my way. And so that's really exciting and really good. And hopefully that turns it into a nice second act or third act, actually, for me.
And you didn't stop. Like that was the thing. People if they get a bunch of rejections and all that, it'll discourage them and think I made the wrong call and this and that. But ultimately, I look at Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston. I mean, obviously, he was doing lots of stuff. He was on Seinfeld. He was on X-Files, I believe, too. That's where Vince first saw him. And then he booked Malcolm in the Middle when he was 40, and then after that, he booked Breaking Bad. So he didn't go into it expecting all that to happen. Probably. I mean, he was going into it as a 20-year-old booking commercials and Seinfeld. And now here he is now. I mean, Bryan Cranston is Bryan Cranston. Like he's a
Bryan
god, really.
Cranston. Well, I'll tell you about that. I did a pilot, a half-hour pilot for Fox years ago. And it was me and, oh my God, well, Brian was in it because I'm blanking on their names. But what I remember is that he lived in the valley and he was married and he was like 40, and I was like, what? Oh, poor Brian. So we did this pilot and it didn't get picked up. So we go about our business. Cut to, I'm at the premiere of Better Call Saul season 1, and the pilot that we did together, I believe, was called Helmet Heads. It was sort of a NASA comedy thing or something or other. He played a colonel or something. I don't know. Honest to God, I don't remember. But I remember it was called Helmet Heads because we're seeing the premiere of Better Call Saul season 1. It's up on the big screen. I'm very excited. I'm sitting there, and the show starts, and all of a sudden there's my name, and oh my God, there I am. I'm in the picture. You're like, holy shit! It's exciting, thrilling. Show ends. Everybody's a buzz. We're all excited, and we stand up, and I hear from behind me, "Hey, Fabian, nice job." And I look around, and it's Bryan Cranston. And now, of course, he has become Bryan Cranston since the last time I saw him at Helmet Heads. So I'm just like, oh, hey, man. And he looks at me and he points. He goes, hey, remember Helmet Heads? And I just laugh. I'm like, yeah. I said, I thought that was going to write our ticket. He goes, I'm glad. He goes, because I was in first position for that pilot, meaning that if they picked it up, he was going to have to go do that. But since they didn't make it, he got to go do the other pilot that he was in second position for. And that pilot was Malcolm in the Middle.
And then it just all went up from there, you know?
Right. And so you go, oh, right. Everybody has a crooked line. Had that gone, who knows? Brian and I would be friends and barbecuing out back. We are friends now, but for a different reason. And because he didn't get that job, he got Malcolm in the Middle, which set the stage for him to go further. So it's a funny crooked line, and you never know what's going on. And it's a business that is not fair. So many very, very, very much more talented people than myself, I know, just don't catch a break or don't get the right job, or it's a hard business, and it's hard to make peace with that if you see,
Yes.
but it's never been a fair business. It's never been a meritocracy. But I do believe, to your point, all the way back in the beginning, I stuck around. I went to college and I got trained for this. This is my assumption was that I wasn't going to be rich and famous. My assumption was that I was going to just have to be hopefully a working actor, meaning I could support myself just doing that. That was the goal. And then along the way, you hope for other things, and maybe you get other things, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not rich and famous, but at least I'm recognizable. That's Saul definitely did that, and doing some other things as well, because TV penetrates.
Exactly. Especially a show like Better Call Saul that was, I hear, I still read like Reddit comments and posts that Better Call Saul is a show that never should have worked, but it did. Where you're gonna do a prequel about the goofy lawyer. Like, come on, that's not like it's so funny seeing all the comments of yeah, this is a terrible idea,
Yeah.
and then you see now where it's some people say it's even better than Breaking Bad. I still go back and forth on what's better, but that's just how good Better Call Saul has proven to be. Is that if I'm sitting there, I like Breaking Bad. I always said best show ever, and then the fact that I'm even debating whether Better Call Saul's better. That's something that not many spinoffs can do. Like that's truly something that also a testament to not just you guys, but also Vince Gilligan, Peter Gould,
Oh,
and all the writers. I mean, it's hard to imagine where that would be without them.
no, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, those guys, they'd already won. They'd won it all. They had won in Vegas. They won it. They got the jackpot. Emmys galore. The little show that could rules Netflix, everything. And then to take all those earnings and winnings and basically shove them all back to the middle of the table and say, let it ride. Crazy. And to your point, on paper, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for it. Why spoil a good thing? It was already lauded as one of the greatest shows in television. Why spoil that? And the fact that they did, and the fact that it worked out the way it did, is a testimony only to Vince and Peter and those writers' rooms, like Tom Schnauz, because they allowed the characters, they allowed the story to take them to where they could, And I think, to your point, I think there is no comparison because they're just different animals. They already had 6 years and 6 seasons of working on Breaking Bad under their belt, mind wise, shooting wise, and technical wise. So by the time they got to Saul, they were able to do whatever they wanted at whatever pace they wanted. And I think they wanted to have a show that was a little more interior with the emotions. And they also weren't sure. They didn't know. I was nervous when it was premiering. Can you imagine Vince and Peter also going like, oh my God, what do we got? We think it's good, but we don't know. So,
I mean,
those guys, amazing. They changed my life by casting me in it and having faith in me and it and everybody. It was remarkable when you really look at it. The fact that they did what they did by saying, let's try it again. Crazy, nuts. Well, that's why they're geniuses.
no, exactly. They really, really are like just there's just so many things about, I mean, like, it's really hard to pinpoint like what it is exactly. It's just how it all comes together, how it's acted, how it's written, how it's shot, how it, like, just everything all around between both shows, and then also El Camino too. Just absolutely incredible. And even your character arc of Howard Hamlin, of course. I mean, I think I was in the same boat as a lot of people, where at the start, Howard is clearly the villain, especially in the first episode when his very first scene, Jimmy calls him Lord Vader. That's when you know right off the bat that this guy's probably the villain. And then
Right.
you find out he's not the villain.
If you rewatch it, though, if you rewatch it from the top, I can make an argument that Howard is the most straight shooter there is. He's on the beam the entire time.
Exactly.
And you keyed it right into it. So we're watching a show called Better Call Saul, and we love that funny lawyer from Breaking Bad, Bob Odenkirk's who we're rooting for. And so when he comes in and calls me Lord Vader, the audience immediately just goes, he's bad.
Yep. Exactly. Even Howard's demeanor, where he's just sitting there, like he's just, he's got the smug look on his face. You're like, this guy's just an asshole. And then it turns out he is the best of all of them. And then when you watch, it's even just so crazy when you think about, because obviously from the start of Better Call Saul, we're all thinking, okay, where are all the characters going to end up? Where Howard ended up and how his arc went and how it ended, that was something that was so wild to think about, but also it made complete sense. It just made complete sense for it to end that way. But going back to season 1, did you know what the twist was at the end of season 1, where it turns out that Chuck was actually undermining Jimmy? Like, did you know about that before you started filming? And if so, how did that kind of impact? Oh, you didn't? Wow.
No. We went week to week getting scripts. Nobody consulted with me or told me like this is coming up ahead or anything like that, which I think as an actor, for me, I prefer it that way, because there's no point in me knowing what happens next Friday, because my character's living in today, Monday or Tuesday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I know events that are going to be happening in the future, it can only color what I'm doing today. And that's no good. So we didn't know anything that was going on. And honestly, I don't think they did either when they first started off. They weren't sure. They were sort of writing themselves in that sort of like, well, what if? Well, what happens here? Well, what if they do this? How would that affect things? I don't think they had a real driving point at all. But I know that when they hired Michael McKean and they saw the chemistry between him and Bob, they were like, oh. And I think Vince is on the record, or Peter Gould is on the record as saying this. They thought that Saul's brother was going to come in for like a couple of episodes, tops. But then they saw McKean do that thing that he did with the electric blanket and all that stuff, right?
So good.
So good. I'm sure there's other actors who could have done that, but I can't imagine it. I thought Michael brought such a truth to that thing that I think the writers just all of a sudden saw like a turkey dinner put in front of them, and they just started carving it up. And we basically spent the next, whole second season rotating around Chuck at that point in a lot of ways.
This episode of the Corkin Entertainment Show is brought to you by Taylor Brands. Are you ready to take your brand to the next level? Whether you're launching a new business, scaling your side hustle, or just want to give your existing brand a glow up, then I highly recommend you check out Taylor Brands. Taylor Brands is an all-in-one branding platform that empowers entrepreneurs and creatives like you to express your unique identity online. Their user-friendly platform helps you design logos, business cards, social media posts, and all the promotional materials that you need to get your brand noticed. And it doesn't stop there. With Taylor Brands, you'll also get access to powerful tools to manage your social media presence and create high-quality marketing content, all tailored specifically for your brand. Join the thousands of satisfied entrepreneurs who have transformed their business identities with Taylor Brands. Sign up today and use the link in our episode description to let Taylor Brands know that we sent you. This episode of the Corcoran Entertainment Show is brought to you by Audiobooks. This website allows customers to choose from over 125,000 of the best sellers and hottest titles of all genres. Audiobooks can be downloaded directly to one of the free iPhone, iPad, or Android apps, or streamed instantly from almost any internet-enabled device to listen to. Whether you're driving, doing chores, or going for walks, Audiobooks is there for you anytime, anywhere. Not sure if audiobooks are your thing? No worries. Audiobooks.com offers a 30-day free trial. That means you can explore thousands of titles at no cost to you. If you find that audiobooks aren't quite your style, you can cancel anytime, no strings attached. With such a low-risk opportunity, why not give it a go? Sign up for a free 30-day trial today using the link in our episode description to let audiobooks.com know that we sent you. And I still think it was, people can say what they want, that it's just an award and this and that, but I still think it was a crime that Michael McKean didn't get nominated for the chicanery speech. To me, God. I was like, not even a nomination, really? That was just, how do you see the whole Emmy situation? Because that's one thing, I actually did a whole topic on the podcast, I think it was last year, about how I thought it was a crime that Better Call Saul was nominated for all those Emmys and didn't win one. Where do you see it? And are you in the mindset of like some people where they're like, it's just an award, what's the big deal? It's a great show. But for me, I'm like, just one, come on, like even like just something. Like I was so shocked even too when Jonathan Banks didn't get the trophy for the 5-0, the Mike Backstory episode. To me, I was like, even Peter Dinklage won that year, and Peter was like, I didn't prepare a speech because I thought Jonathan was going to win. So where do you see the whole Emmys thing with Better Call Saul and like all the different takes on it?
Well, I think we have a record, though. I think we're the record for most nominations and no wins. I think we're like 53-0.
Which is still like, really? Not even one? That just really, that blows my mind.
One, would it have been fun to win Emmys? Absolutely. We did get nominated every season we were out there for Best Drama. We saw other shows come and win them and go. Come and win them and go. But we stuck along, and we were the little train that, hung out for a long time. I thought Ray Seahorn in particular gave such depth of work that she was fantastic. She's not robbed, but it took a long time for people to recognize what she was doing in that. And, what she was doing work-wise wasn't necessarily the flashiest of things, and sometimes awards like to see flash and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm a member of the Academy and I voted for us every year. So
there you go.
they had one vote. But in the end, it is nice to be at the party. It's nice to be nominated and be part of that. But, Michael McKean being overlooked, Jonathan Banks, not being rewarded.
Patrick Fabian.
I just don't get it. Bob.
Yes.
Bob putting in just giant work, consistent work. I really thought by season 4 or 5, something was going to pop. But, it's a mercurial thing. It's like running for a high school president. Who knows? Depending on the student body at any given time, they're looking for things. And I will remind you also, you're a fan and I'm a fan. It's a show that's on AMC. It's a show that's on nonlinear cable.
Yeah. Who watches cable anymore?
It's not HBO. It's not ABC. It's not Netflix. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't have the money to campaign like HBO and stuff like that. And, Breaking Bad had just won everything.
Yep.
They had won everything again and again and again. Those last 2 seasons, right? Everybody won everything, it felt like.
And Cranston, I think he won every year but one. So that's 6 nominations, and he won 5 out of the 6. Who else has done that?
And just on a on a human nature level, you're like, well, we gave all those Emmys to Vincent Peters' show already. We'll do something else. And in that respect, Saul had a bit of an 800-pound gorilla on it when it came out. It needed to be received really well, or they would have yanked it. You know what I mean? It would have been maybe an embarrassment. But instead, I think that the fan base initially, although sort of like, what is this, really warmed to it. And those that sort of immediately said, nah, I'm not on board. I think we got a lot of those people back around season 3 or 4 when other fans were like, no, you got to come back and check this out. Because it's hard it's hard when Breaking Bad ends on such an operatic note. You can't start a series up there. They built 6 years to get to that moment. So then
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're like, some kids on a skateboard are having a problem. Oh, Tuco's over here. You know what I mean? It seems very low stakes, but it's not. Saul, I think, really was the rewards are in the granular details, in the behavior and in the silences. So, and eventually, let's face it, there was plenty of gunfire and mayhem.
Oh, 100%. That's why I tell people, I'm like, if the first season seems slower, just give it time. Give it time. I promise you, Breaking Bad was the same way. Just give it time.
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned Bob, especially too. I mean, especially what he went through in the final season was such
Yeah.
a scary thing. I mean, especially for you being there when that all happened. Of course, for those guys who are unaware, his heart attack that he suffered on set. I was kind of curious, how did that kind of change your outlook on things? Because I saw an interview with Peter Gould just recently. I think it was for Rolling Stone, I believe, where he talked about had something like, I mean, thankfully Bob's still around. I can't wait for Nobody 2. It's gonna be a great movie. And he had talked about that had Bob not been able to finish it, he would have just dropped the show. And I see a lot of different points on that where like I get 100% where they're coming from. I can see a little bit of the side of, but it's such a great story. Would you want to just recast it? Bob would have wanted it, whatever. But also I am more so on the side of someone like you guys. You guys were there when that happened. And how do you go back and finish it knowing that it happened on set? He can't finish the show now. Where do you kind of stand on like what Peter said, where he would have dropped it? Do you agree, especially considering that you were there when it happened?
Oh yeah. It's over. It's done. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, when the ambulance was taking him away, one of the thoughts I had was like, oh, no one will ever see this season. That's it. And that's okay, because if nothing like watching somebody have a heart attack in front of you to remind yourself that life is precious and short. And just because you're number one on the call sheet doesn't mean you can't have a problem. And thank God that everybody didn't want to be an actor. I'm glad there's paramedics and people who know what to do in moments like that, without a doubt. And you know, it's funny. Ray and I talked about it because we were there when he suffered the heart attack, and we had crazy thoughts in our head. I remember thinking like, well, he can't die. I know he has a pitch meeting with Netflix next week. You know what I mean?
Which is weird to think about,
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. And then we're all in our costumes. We're all play acting. We're all just playing. It looks very thin and it looks very nonsensical in the midst of
Mhm.
something like that. And so when he was driven away, I was like, well, that's it. And when we got, we got out of our wardrobe, and then Ray and I hung out. Ray and I went. Um, I remember also being very conscious of like, this might be the last time you're on the lot. Like that's it. And okay. And then I tried very much to not get ahead of one, me trying to play doctor, two, trying to be producer, three, trying to be anything, maybe trying to be Bob. Those situations and those moments, I've been taught, what can I do? How can I help? And if that means helping Ray and Ray can help me, maybe that's what it is. If it's reaching out to Bob's family, maybe that's what it is. If it's reaching out to crew, maybe that's what it is. That sort of thing. And in the end, if you have a God, whatever it may be, you give a prayer or a thought somewhere in hopes. And then, miraculously, within like 6 weeks, we're back on that same set. We're
Which is
finishing the scene.
crazy to think about. What was Bob's first day?
Crazy.
His first day back on set, how was it? Must have been emotional. And from what I
Yeah.
hear, he is a workaholic, where he's always the first to arrive, he's the last one to leave. But he just had a serious health scare. So, were you guys kind of there as like, yeah, guys, I'll stay? No, Bob, you're going home. Like, was it
Well,
very?
yeah.
Yeah.
He had doctor's orders. He was post a heart attack, and so stress they want you to avoid, and long hours. And television is both those things in spades. So, we modified shooting. We shot all the other things that we could shoot around Bob. But I think Bob, I think his hours were like 10. I think it was like 10 hours. Instead of 12 or 16, they allowed him only 10 hours of work, and then they sent him home. It was, we were giggling. We're like, that's the big one.
That's pretty
But yeah, we
serious,
did
you
that.
know?
But, when he came back, it was, what's that weird thing? Once the first time he was back on set, of course, you're all like, oh my God, we're here, da 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 da. And then we started to go to work. That's what we do, right? So we're like, all right, we're going to take it from, I think Vince was directing. Oh no, maybe it was Tom.
That was when you were dead on the floor, I believe,
Yeah,
was it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was Tom. So Tom's like, all right, so you're going to come in from here, and then we'll do that first part and everything else. And Bob's like, what? He hadn't remembered the entire thing that we'd shot already, which is really weird, right? And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So then he sat, and he had that singular experience of watching himself do something he has no recollection of. Because I think bodies, they go into shock and they wipe the slate clean when you're going into trauma and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I guess his body just sort of said, oh, that Monday, we're going to erase that. And so there he is watching himself. And at first he watches it. He said, this is weird. I don't remember doing any of that. But then, as he pointed out as well, he goes, look, people have heart attacks every day and they go back to work. That's what happens. They have a heart attack, they get repaired, they take a little break, and then they go back to life. And so he looked at himself on the screen and he goes, wait, okay. And he sort of watched himself to mimic himself. God love him, nailed it. Went back, boop, 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 did everything. It was really fun. And then we just started working like you do.
Wow. Like,
Yeah,
that's
really
just,
crazy
wow.
and surreal. And it makes things like, oh, we didn't win an Emmy? Okay, that's all right. We got to finish the show. How incredible. What a gift. What an amazing gift that we got to finish the show.
I mean,
And
you guys went through so many delays with COVID and then Bob's health scare. Like, it was just a miracle that it got done.
It took forever. So then when we did get to, because we still got nominated for lots of stuff, we did get to go to the Critics' Choice and the Golden Globes and the SAG Awards and the Emmys, whether we were winning stuff or not, it really did feel very much like icing.
Like, really, and like, what a legacy though to leave behind with that show. I mean, Emmy or not, I mean, we can complain about how it should have got one, it should have got one. At the end of the day, I mean, we see the show for what it was. The fact that we're even questioning if it's better than Breaking Bad, lots of people say it is. And I am completely in the mindset of it's one of the best shows, period. And it's a spinoff, it's a prequel, but it stands on its own so well. One of the reasons why I always say that your character is the most tragic, where we have deaths like Walking Dead. We had the death of Glenn, which people say was the saddest death on TV, and young Sheldon. I've been watching that scene, the death of the father. Spoiler alert! I probably just ruined it for everybody. But the reason Howard stuck out to me so much was because, season one, he's the villain, quote unquote villain, but then it turns out he's kind of just Chuck's underling. He likes Jimmy, he wants to hire Jimmy, he wants to work with him, but Chuck is he looks up to Chuck, he respects Chuck and everything, and so he was kind of Chuck's Chuck's bitch, basically. He was basically Chuck's bitch for the first 3 seasons. And
that's
then
the name of Howard's side band, Chuck's Bitch.
Chuck's bitch. Exactly. And then so of course Chuck's killed off. And then that's when Howard, starts to better himself. He wants to make amends. And because of that, they ruin his life, make him out to be like he's a drug addict. And then he gets murdered by someone he doesn't know, and his body's never found. To me, I'm like, that's why it's the most tragic, because at least with Glenn on The Walking Dead, we're like, okay, he died with the characters knowing he was a good person. On Young Sheldon, George Cooper died, people knowing he was a good father. Howard Hamlin was a good guy who died looking like someone he wasn't, a drug addict. And then he was buried under a meth lab where nobody found his body. That, to me, is why it's so tragic and shocking. Can you take me back to where you got the death call? That's always the most fun thing for actors. Where like I laugh at the interview with Michael McKean when he got the death call and he answers the phone and he says, "If this is the death call, I better pull over." And so, what was your death call like when Vincent Peter told you what was going to happen to Howard?
Well, they called me before the season started, before season 6. Uh, Peter and Vince and Melissa Bernstein all got on the phone with me, and I was just like, "Uh-oh."
Shit.
And so Vince gets on the phone and he goes, "Hey, Patrick, I just want to say, congratulations on everything. It's really great. And boy, the writers are so excited because they just found something. It's going to bring the two worlds together in Better Call Saul, and they're just so thrilled about it. And it's going to involve you." And I said, "Uh-huh, and he goes, "And it looks like you're going to be able to go on vacation a little bit earlier this year." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And because usually you do the whole season with one another. And so when he said I could go on vacation, I said, "Oh, all right." And I said, he goes, "Do you want to know? Do you want to know what's going on?" I said, "No, not necessarily." I said, "I do want to know who's writing it." And he said, "Schnauz." And I said, "Of course he is." Because there's been a joke with Schnauz and I the entire time how he was gonna kill off Howard. He always pitched killing Howard. But in the end, then you go to work. We went to Albuquerque. We started working on season 6. And I don't know. Writers change their mind. Writers' rooms have different ideas about what's going on and everything else. So every week when I'd get the script and nothing had gone on with me bad, I was just like, "Oh." And then I get episode 7, and Vincent also said, "Don't say it to anybody. Don't tell anybody." And I get that because we've been operating like that anyways for the entire time on the show, where we just don't talk about the show because you don't want to let any spoilers out for the fans. You don't want to I don't want to be that guy. So I got real good about not talking about it. My wife didn't know anything that was going on. She would find out when we would watch the show. So I don't say anything. And so we're back there, we're hanging out and doing everything. And then we're getting our scripts. And finally episode 7 drops. And I look at it and I start reading it. And I'm like, "Oh, look, Howard's got a lot to do. Look at him. He's talking the entire time. Oh, chatty Howard. Look at that." And as we're going through, and then all of a sudden, nothing's happening, really. Nothing's happening. And then him and Chuck are talking after the whole debacle at the office. And I was like, oh. And then we get to the scene where I burst in on them. And I have this whole monologue. And I start talking about, how I'm going to make it my, I'm going to make it my goal in life to bring them down and bring them to justice. And in my actor mind, I'm like, well, there's only like a page left in the script. They have clearly, this is awesome. Look, I was going to have like 5 more episodes where he's going to get back at them. This is going to be so cool. I'm literally thinking all of this as I read. The door opens and the candle blows the second time. And I'm like, huh? And then it says Lalo enters. And I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
And then half a page later, end of show. That's how long that takes in the reading. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, that's it. And it was really sad because it's the end of everything. And there it is on the page. It is the end of it all. From the time that I auditioned for this, to the time that I tested for it, to the time I was told I got it, to the time I didn't know anybody, to the time I was living with Bob and Ray, and we were besties, having a great time doing the show. That moment, reading that by myself in the kitchen, it's the end of all. The job's over. The job's over. It's all done. The best role I had, my best friends that I had, and it's just done. And it's a finality of you're like, ugh. And then you go through it, and then you do the work. And, even with all the sort of the last days of high school that we all went through as characters leave, when Mando left, when McKean left, when it's last day for so-and-so, all that stuff.
And then Tony Dalton followed shortly after too.
Yeah. And so then there's that whole thing of like, you just go like, oh, it's the end. And then you slowly become no longer part of the machine. You become no longer part of the thing. And they love you, and they had a great time with you. And we're going to pause now for a moment, and we're going to get teary-eyed, and we're going to talk about it. But then we're going to move on because we have another scene to shoot before the end of the day. and you're not in it. And then you go to the trailer, and the second AD is there, Nathan, and he gives you a hug, and you get into your trailer like you've been getting in your trailer for 6 years. And as you start taking the suit off, you go, "Oh, this is the last time I'll ever take the suit off because I'm done." And then you drive off the lot, and you're like, "Oh no, it's a big, heavy thing." And many actors go through that every time they end a show or end a piece and stuff like that. But this, to your point, it was fraught with a lot of emotion from the get-go. The impossible show that shouldn't exist, that ends up being a hit, that gets lots of nominations and doesn't get rewarded. And then we have COVID, and then Bob almost dies, and he comes back, and then I die, and Mando dies, and Tony dies. And I remember Vince standing over the grave with handsome Tony Dalton and I lying in the bottom, and he's just standing up there, and he goes, "Oh, I don't know if the fans are going to forgive me for this one." He walked away.
But it's so funny, like if you think to season one, like let's say someone starts watching at season one and you say, so Howard's going to get shot by one of the Salamanca cousins and he's going to get buried in the meth lab that Walt and Jesse cook meth in. If you haven't seen the rest of the show, you're on season one, you're like, yeah, that makes no sense. Why would that happen? But it made complete sense by the time you got to season six. You're like, it always felt like this is where it was always supposed to go. And it's just crazy now where I go and read comments as soon as Howard died and was buried. I went back and watched all the comments from like Breaking Bad in the videos and stuff like that. And one of the top comments of it was, "Man, Howard and Lalo really stole this scene. It was a scene of Jesse in the meth lab. Howard and Lalo were the best parts of the scene." I'm like, oh, I can never watch those scenes the same anymore. But really, it's also a testament to your performance and portrayal of the character that, a character that we shouldn't have liked ended up becoming someone who turned out to be the best of them all, and that we were the saddest to see him go. But then, of course, near the end of the show, of course, Howard kind of gets redeemed in the public eye because Kim comes forward.
Yep.
What do you think? I mean, like, let's just say, I mean, of course, I don't think we'll see any more in the Breaking Bad universe and stuff like that. But let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if they were to do something, I don't know, like the Adventures of Kim or something like that. I think they left it out pretty good, but let's just say they were. What would you hope Howard's legacy would be, or like where would you like to see it explored? Like, do you think he would be redeemed in the public eye, or how do you?
I think he is, just by the fact that, I mean, I think the implication is that he will be rehabilitated because she has confessed. She has confessed everything. And that includes the car and the drugs, and all was all made up and everything else. So all that comes out in the wash. Going forward, she would just probably have to reiterate it and stuff like that. But just her initial confession goes ahead and cleans it up. It really does. So, and to your point, I think they are probably done with the Breaking Bad universe.
Yeah.
Although I think I heard an interview with Vince saying like, no, we're not going to do that. And he goes, of course, if the next two shows I try don't work, you never know.
Yeah, he's doing a show with Ray next, right?
Yes, she's the lead of his new show called Waikaro on Apple TV. I'm not sure when it's coming, maybe by the fall, I hope. I don't know hardly anything about it because I don't want to know anything about it because I want to be able to just have their artistry wash over me.
That's so exciting. Like, I can't wait to see it because, I mean, obviously Vince Gilligan. So, I mean, like, it's going to be, that's why Better Call Saul people are saying, or like they were saying when it started, like, oh, this show is going to be a failure and this and that. The first thing I thought of was, well, Vince Gilligan's on board and the same crew as Breaking Bad. They know what they're doing. So I had complete faith in it from the start. I just didn't expect that I would actually be thinking, is this better than Breaking Bad? That was the one thing I didn't expect.
Sure. Well, I think they're in the same closet. And again, I think they had 8 years to work on Breaking Bad. And so they developed that muscle that was already ready to go to help shepherd us in. I always think of us as being different shirts in the same wardrobe. But the mothership in my mind is always the best. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, always 100%. So Patrick, I mean, we could talk. I could talk on and on and on and on about just you, your career, Better Call Saul, what you're doing next. But I think we'll call it there for the interview. I just want to say first off, thank you so much for taking the time to join the podcast. It was such an honor. It's great to see Howard alive. And do you have any final words for our listeners or people who, kind of going back to where we started, where people like how hard the industry can be? Any final advice or parting words that you can give to our listeners?
Yeah, I'll say one thing, and this is just being a dad as well, and also being somebody who grew up when phones and the internet wasn't around. Um, the world's always been sort of on fire and falling around your ears. You just didn't see it 24/7. So a reminder that as great as our phones are for like watching videos and music and stuff like that, as we are learning, unfortunately, a lot of it is just nonsense, lies, and full of vitriol. So don't forget to get outside and go hiking. Don't forget to get outside and go see trees and rivers and go hold hands and go fall in love and go have dinner and go to concerts and go to theater, because that's the stuff that really makes being alive. That, and of course, rewatching Better Call Saul. I want to thank anybody who watched the show. And if you want to know what I'm up to next, you can always go to my website, patrickfabian.com. And you can rent right now The Way We Speak, an indie film about Melito that is on, I think, Roku and Amazon Prime and stuff like that. And I don't know, if you want to be an actor, be an actor. You want to be a chef, go be a chef. Take it one day at a time and lead with good cheer and good character from your side of the street. That sounds pretty dad-like, don't you think?
That's very dad-ass, but it's good though. It's good. And your kids are behind the camera going, yep, he says that every day to me. Thank you guys for listening to the show today. We will see you guys next week. But until then, this is Frankie and Patrick Fabian signing off. Cheers, Patrick.
Cheers, man.